Hi, this is Roger, thanks for dropping by. Welcome to another one of these Orchid Progress Update videos. These are a monthly set of videos, normally at the end of the month. This one should have been at the end of September, it's late. Tough. Other things took over at the end of September. These are based on going back on a rolling 3-month basis. So what we're doing in this video is going back to June and doing an update, a progress update on all of the orchids that had work done on them in June. So they could have been mounted, unmounted, potted, repotted, whatever, change of media. But if they had work done on them, then they're included in these progress updates. There's a separate playlist for these if you enjoy these types of videos. The playlist will be a screen on the end of the video, which will show, obviously if you go to the playlist you can select from the previous, I'll say previous 3, set 1, set 2 and set 3, but set 3 was a biggie, so it was a part 1 and part 2. So there's 4 of these types of videos so far. This will be number 5. And I do them in the order as they progressed through the month. The reason being that I can give you the date that the work was done. If you really want to, you can go back and find the individual videos of that work because you've got the date, so you can search through my videos looking for, till you get to that date, and then hopefully the title will reflect what goes on inside it. Doesn't always, does it? You know me. Right, so that's the principle. It's not a huge number this time round, so we can get it all in a single video, and we'll do them progressing in the order on my list, which I need somewhere dry to put, so that can go there for a minute. Excuse my back. Right, orchid number 1. This is Cattleya Sofronitis, once upon a time. The renamers got at it. Now this is a strange Cattleya because it grows very, very differently to most of the others I've come across anyway. It's a real miniature. These are the pseudo bulbs. They don't grow much bigger than that, if at all. And it blooms late November, December-ish. So it's almost a Christmas bloomer, you could call it. And basically it produces a new growth along the lines of that there, which grows a bulb, pushes out a folded leaf. The folded leaf unfurls and reveals the buds. They're already there inside the leaf. Yeah, so the leaf is like a sheath, but subtly different because it is actually a leaf. So then it blooms. Blooms don't last a long time. Gorgeous colour. I'll do pop-ups of full plant names and what the blooms look like if they've bloomed, and I've got a picture. But then this orchid goes to sleep. Once it's finished blooming, it finishes off any root growth that's going on and effectively goes dormant for about, well, literally for the rest of the year. And then it starts growing again around now. So sort of September, October time it comes back into growth. So that's just about what it's starting to do. Now it's going to be very difficult to see these growths because they're tiny. But there's one there, right on the end of my finger. There's another one there, on the end of my finger. And then there's a larger one there, which is a little easier to see, just there. So at the moment I can see 3. Oh, there's another one there, 4. So at the moment there are a few new growths. Now this had a very weak root system. It was taken off a mount. A very old tired root system that had failed almost, just about enough to keep it alive. Lots of the older part of the plant had died. So basically I picked on what looked like about the best of the worst and remounted them using the New Zealand sphagnum moss, wired it in place, and it's been watered now and again to stop it shrivelling, but now's the time to sort of start making sure it doesn't dry out and get some feed in there to push these new growths on. Not many, but as long as they produce new roots, that will put some strength into these pieces ready for next time round. So that's that one. And the next one, where's my list? Next one is the Epicatanthi. It's easy for you to say. Epicatanthi. It's effectively an Cattleya, but that's the name that sort of works with that now. I haven't done a new tag for this one. This is Volcano Trick Orange Fire, and all that this one had done really, it was taken out of old media and repotted in a holy clay pot at an appropriate time as new roots were starting to grow and we had a new growth. So what we've got now, if I can lift this bit out of the way, is some nice new roots, a plethora, a good number of new roots, and a nice strong new growth with a sheath that hopefully I'm going to get some blooms on, because this one has yet to bloom. But it's settling in to that holy clay pot quite nicely. You know, roots have gone down into the pot, come out of some of the holes. So it's now got a reasonable root system, and it's got a new growth pushing on, and some sheaths that could do with taking off. You know, I'm still paranoid about sheaths on Cattleyas hiding scale, but I've virtually eradicated scale now, so but I still take the sheaths off every chance I get. Anyway, so that's that little one. Right, next we've got two little, and I mean little, Dendrobiums. Now this is Dendrobium trigonopus. We repotted this because I hadn't repotted it since I got it, and I didn't know what it was in, and I didn't know whether I had any roots. The media it was in turned out not to be that bad, and we didn't have any roots. I still don't believe we've got any, but what we do have is a weak new growth. Now this is a notoriously difficult plant to grow, to cultivate, Dendrobium trigonopus. They just don't do very well in cultivation. People have tried many ways: high humidity, high airflow, lower humidity, high airflow, high humidity, lower airflow, brighter light, reduced light. All the combinations, many people have tried many of those combinations and still failed. I had this a long time ago. I kept it going for about 2 years on a mount. This is around the other place. Then it failed. This one is growing a new growth. That's more than the other one did around the other place, I think. So that's as good as it gets for me. So far so good. I've just watered this. It's soaking wet. From now on, yeah, shorter days, cooler temperatures, that's going to get hardly any water at all now. Otherwise that new growth's just going to rot off. And then perhaps we'll get some roots to grow. So that's that one. That was potted up in small bark with some sphagnum moss. And then another little Dendrobium. This is Tetragonum. Now this was taken off a mount where a new growth had rotted. That's always a telltale sign that something's not right. So I took it off the mount and we put it in a pot. This is in small bark perlite with some sphagnum moss in there. We've got roots showing down in the pot now, so it's grown some roots since it was put in this pot. These are live roots, fresh roots, and it's grown a new growth here, this one. So again, this one, that's just been, everything got watered today, so everything looks soaking wet, but from now on this won't get much water. As it goes through winter, it'll stay almost dry, and when it gets watered, it'll get nothing more than a trickle, just to stop it shriveling. Strange bulbs on this one. The profile is square, whether you can see, but the canes are square. Very, very thin at the bottom, fat towards the top, and square. Very odd. So that is Tetragonum. Now all of those were worked on, all 4 of those that we've done so far were worked on the 3rd of the 6th, so the 3rd of June. Probably in one video, maybe 2. Right, we now move on to the 20th, and we've got 2 Mazda Valias. So they'll be in one video, definitely. I wouldn't have done a separate video for these, that's for sure. Both of these would have gone in my Let's Grow Some Roots mix, which is also incredibly suitable for Mazda Valias anyway. The only difference, I would say, the only thing to watch with this mix for Mazda Valias is the bark size. Because if you've got big, thick, fleshy roots on your Mazda Valia, small bark, perlite and moss is too fine a mix. It holds too much moisture and not enough air for those big fleshy roots. So you want medium bark, not quite so much moss and some perlite. So what have we got here? This is Mazda Valia falcata. I believe that's a primary hybrid, but I'll put some words in the pop-up. Now, this didn't have very good roots, and it may still not have many, but the roots would be starting in the middle of the pot, working to the edge of the pot. But what you have got, if I tip it over slightly, is what you're looking at is every light green leaf is a new growth. And down at the base here, there are multiple new growths. This one is doing the proverbial growing like a weed. It's yet to bloom for me, I haven't had it that long. Yes, it's coming on nicely. It's got one manky leaf. Apart from that, that's a nice looking Mazda Valia. Lots of new growths, all pushing on. You know, some getting up to maturity here, some still to push on. So that's that one. And then the other one that was done at the same time, I can't pronounce that. Nii. It's Nie Double S. Work out how you want to mix those letters into a well-known phrasal saying, and then it's Eniae. So what you could say about that word is, you sure you got enough vowels there, Butch? Anyway, it's a strange looking word, and we haven't got what I would call any significant root growth showing to the edge of the pot yet, but we do have plenty of new growths on the plant. Yeah, so we've got plenty of new growths pushing on here, leaves yet to open on some of them, but good number of new growths, growing okay, and a very healthy looking plant. Let's look at the leaves. They're all good. There's no black brown tips, no yellow bits, no leaves falling off every time you pick the plant up. It's a nice plant, and yet it doesn't seem to have a mass of active roots. But with the number of new growths pushing up, they will come. They will come. So that's the 2 Mazda Valias. They both went in my small bark, perlite and moss. And those 2 were both worked on the 20th of the 6th. So there'll be a video with both of those there. We then get on to 2 plants that together are probably worth more in value, monetary value, than all of that side of the grow room put together. Expensive plants. They came from Mathers. I bought them at Wisley, which would have, when was Wisley this year, eh? February or March time, earlier in the year anyway, with money that was donated. So it wasn't all my money, so I wasn't spending my stuff. Now, these 2, there's a pair of them, they are in effect the same hybrid, but they're not the same blooms. And what you've got is basically a hybrid produced from seed, so every seedling has the potential to be slightly different. These two seedlings were very different, so I've called them a dark form and a light form, because that's exactly what they are. You'll see as I put the blooms up. So this is the smaller of the two, and this is the pale form. The actual plant, it's called, strictly speaking, Oncidium tippling, but in my book it's Odontoglossum tippling, because it is an odont type. Now it's got a strong new growth pushing on, but I need to chat to Jim, or possibly Brian Gould, somebody who grows a lot of odonts. It's a good growth, but it's massive leaves compared with what this plant had before. If you look at the pseudobulb that preceded it and look at the size of the two little tiny short fat dark green leaves with the bloom spike that was in bloom when I got it, and these are long brighter green leaves that are bending over where they're so big. Now that could be overfeeding. Yeah, too much nitrogen, limp, flimsy growth. But whenever I feed higher nitrogen values, I always put extra calcium in, which is supposed to sort of keep the strength up. But yes, I mean, I might end up having to sort of stake these in place until they set. And by set, I mean become stiff and stop flopping around. But it's got a new growth. Now, both of these were not repotted. They were potted on as per what Jim Durrant would have done at the Mathers Foundation. So he'd have taken them out of their pots at the appropriate time. It's a regime, a 3-year cycle, and at the end of the 2-year cycle, they're taken out of their pots, any loose media just sort of gently shaken or teased off, and they're put in the next size pot up with some fresh media down the sides. They're potted on, they're not repotted. And that allows the new roots to get into some fresh media. So that's that one. And then the other one is the same hybrid, but is a bigger, stronger plant. And this is the dark form. So again, I've got this problem with if you look at the previous pseudobulb, that's what the leaves look like. Relatively short and fat and quite a dark colour. Now don't forget, these leaves have had time to mature. They would naturally be darker. So I'm not particularly worried about the colour. But look at the size of the leaves on the latest bulb. They're absolutely massive. And they're having trouble opening. So we may have a problem, Houston. Nonetheless, potted on, so new roots go down into fresh media, and yeah. So that's those two. Precious, those two, as far as monetary values are concerned. And those were both worked on the 22nd of June. So the video would be on the 22nd, basically. And that would show them being potted on and a chat about them at the time and everything, if you want to go back and find that right. And the last one on the list is another Cattleya, and this was dealt with on the 27th of June. And this was basically a repot. This is my only red Cattleya. And quite honestly, it's my only relatively strong growing Cattleya that I've got left now. Basically taken out of a holy clay pot and put into a normal pot, wired in place. I actually put wire up through the bottom of the pot, not in through the sides, and then over the top of the rhizome and back down into the pot. And at the time we had some signs of new roots, and we had a new growth pushing on. That new growth is this one here. Yeah, so it's now pushing out its leaf and its sheath. Yes, this is a unifoliate Cattleya type, only ever has one leaf per pseudobulb. So when it looks like it's got two leaves, it's got a sheath. And I've yet to have this Cattleya form a sheath without forming buds, but they don't happen straight away. There is a delay. The bulb carries on to maturity, extends its leaf to its full size, and then it has a bit of a wait, a bit of a rest, and then the buds start to show in the sheath. But in addition to that, what we've now got is another new growth here and another new growth here. So we now have 3 new growths, 2 of a similar size, yeah? So those 2 will probably mature at the same time, a bit later than this one. So we're going to hopefully get an extended blooming, yeah? It'll be really good if these 2 come into bloom together while this one's still got its blooms open. That would be quite a nice show, but wishful thinking probably. And as a consequence of new growths, I don't want to tip this up too much, but we've got lots of new roots forming around the base of the plant. Well, they're just about getting to the edge of the pot. They haven't gone down the edge of the pot yet. This one is quite a shallow rooter and is not a very good rooter on past, yeah? So it doesn't produce very good roots, this Cattleya, for some reason. But hopefully with 3 new growths on the go, if all of them produce not such good roots, but there's 3 of them, that should make up for the fact that they're not very good. Anyway, so that's my bright red Cattleya, and that was worked on at the end of June 27th. Taking it out of a holy clay pot is a bit of a struggle, but nonetheless it came out okay. And now it's producing a nice lot of new roots. So that's that. Right, so those were all the plants that were worked on in June in the order that I did them in, and they're in little sets because they're not all in individual videos. They're in, you know, pairs and threes and things like that. That's why I gave you the dates, so that you can go back and find the actual video where I did the work if you want. And then don't forget, on the end of the video is the playlist with the other videos like this one, yeah? Set 1, set 2 and set 3, part 1 and part 2. So there's 4 of those if you like that sort of video. Okay, so that's that. This is a fiddly one to put together. It's quite an easy one to film, apart from getting the list sorted out, which means going through every single plant in my notes, looking at the date last worked on to see if it's 0623. This is the second version of the list. The first version of the list had lots of 06s and 22 on the end. And then when I got to do it today, I thought, I haven't worked on that this year, that's last year's plant. Training pilot again, circling round. Lucky tyke, lovely blue sky out there today. Hardly any breeze. Nice day to do some flying. Yeah, so that's how these videos work. Now when we get to, I know this is in October, but this is effectively September's video. When we get towards the end of October, I will, prior to that, look back and see how many plants I worked on in July. Yeah, it's a 3-month rolling cycle. We've just done June, so the next one will be all about July. Now there might not be many, and there'll come a point where there aren't any. You know, looking back 3 months and I didn't do anything in that, you know, so be it. But these sets are going to be kept together. We may revisit them again as sets like this in, say, a year's time. So instead of a 3-month update, let's have a 12-month update. I'll keep the lists and the order and the dates. Possibility. Especially as I'm still trying to think of ideas for next year's Project Orchids. Anyway, these are progress updates, not Project Orchids. Hope you enjoy that sort of thing. I get asked a lot, how is so-and-so doing? Have you still got this? You know, so people are, you know, people get interested in possibly a couple of my orchids specifically, and more so than perhaps the rest. Yeah, so they're interested in how they're doing. Are they still alive and all that sort of thing. But, I just spotted some buds. my Dendrobium infundibulum, has got buds. And they're difficult to see because they're in the roof. They are literally 1 inch from the roof. That's how tall the canes are. It might have to come down on the lower shelf soon, especially as it's got a new cane pushing on that hasn't finished growing yet, that's nearly up to the same height. Off subject. Anyway, thanks for dropping by. Hope you enjoyed that. And if you're not subscribed, it would be nice if you did so. And don't forget the old thumbs up on the video. You know, I keep prodding about the gardening channel and, you know, go over and do this. This channel still needs to grow. Let's not forget it. Yeah, don't forget the old thumbs up. Leave a comment. They're always appreciated. And thanks for watching. And if you're still listening, getting to the very end. See you next time. Thanks for dropping by.